What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into some of the most explosive, controversial, and downright awkward moments in hip-hop interview history. We're talking about times when interviewers didn't hold back, when they called out rappers on their lies, their secrets, and their contradictions right there on camera. Some of these moments got physical, some got embarrassing, and some exposed truths that these artists desperately wanted to keep hidden. From fake scholarships to real snitching allegations, from questionable kisses to outright lies about money, we've got 15 wild stories that show what happens when the truth comes knocking during a live interview, so buckle up because we're about to get into it. Let's kick things off with the Island Boys, because their situation on the Danza project is absolutely wild. Now, before they came on this show, there was already a viral clip making the rounds of these two brothers kissing each other on the lips. You know how the internet is, that clip was everywhere. People were talking, people were clowning, and the Island Boys knew it. So they show up to the Danza project, and there's this YouTuber named Like Mike who's also on the show. The Island Boys are having some kind of argument during the interview, and Like Mike, trying to be funny or whatever, asks them if they're going to kiss it out since they're arguing. Oh man, that did not go over well. The Island Boys immediately stand up, getting aggressive, letting Like Mike know that they'll beat him down for even bringing that topic up. They're going on about how they made millions trying to flex, but you can tell they're genuinely upset. The thing is, when someone hit that nerve, that's all they could talk about. Every comeback was about money, about success, trying to deflect from the actual question. Later in that same interview, things escalate even further. One of the Island Boys is talking to Danza about how he doesn't care what haters say about him, right? He's acting all unbothered, above it all. But Danza, being smart about it, asks the obvious question. If you really don't care what people say, why do you get so mad when someone brings up you kissing your brother? Why does that topic make you lose your cool if you're so confident and secure? That's when Danza basically exposed them for feeling some type of way about what they did, because their reaction shows they're not as comfortable with it as they claim to be. The Island Boys completely lose it at this point. They're threatening to tear up all of Danza's podcast equipment, getting in his face, and it almost turns into a full-on fight right there in the studio. Security had to get involved in everything. The whole situation just proved Danza's point. They clearly care a lot about what people think regarding that kiss. Now, interestingly enough, the Island Boys aren't the only ones who got exposed by an interviewer for kissing someone, because Birdman went through something similar. Birdman was on the Revolt Big Facts podcast, and the host Jade straight up asked him about those viral pictures of him kissing Lil Wayne on the lips. These photos had been circulating for years, and people always had questions about them. But here's the difference. Birdman handled it way more professionally than the Island Boys did. You can tell he's been in the industry a long time. He knows how to navigate these uncomfortable questions. He explained to everyone that Wayne was like a son to him, that he raised him when Wayne didn't have a father figure. Birdman said that back in those days, he was deep in the streets, living a dangerous life, and he genuinely feared that every time he saw Wayne might be the last time. So those kisses on the lips were his way of showing love to someone he considered his son. Nothing intimate, nothing weird, just a man expressing love to someone he raised in an environment where tomorrow wasn't promised. Whether you believe that explanation or not, you have to admit Birdman handled that question a lot better than the Island Boys handled theirs. Moving on from kisses to lies, because Big Boogie got absolutely exposed for making up one of the most ridiculous stories I've ever heard. In 2023, Big Boogie went on Bootleg Kev's show to chop it up and talk about his come-up, his music, and his background. Kev asked him a simple question: where did you go to college? Now, Big Boogie could have just kept it real and said he didn't go to college, or he went for a little bit, or whatever the truth was. But instead, this man decided to create an elaborate lie that would eventually make him look absolutely foolish. He told Kev that he didn't go to college because he turned down a scholarship. Okay, that's believable so far. Lots of people turn down scholarships for various reasons. But then he said it was a drumming scholarship, and it was from a big college in Jacksonville. Still somewhat believable, right? But then he says the scholarship was worth 15 million. No, wait, 10 million. No, actually $5 million. $5 million for a drumming scholarship. Kev immediately caught that and was like, wait, hold up. Are you sure they offered you $5 million? And Big Boogie is sitting there trying to defend this obvious lie, saying, yeah, it was $5 million a year to go to school for a decade or something like that. Anyone with common sense knows that's absolutely ridiculous. No college is offering a $5 million scholarship to anyone, let alone for drumming. The most generous scholarships out there might cover tuition, room, board, maybe a stipend, but we're talking maybe $100,000 over 4 years at most. Not $5 million. Bootleg Kev is sitting there trying not to laugh, asking Big Boogie if he's sure about these numbers, and you can see Big Boogie realizing he's dug himself into a hole but not wanting to back down. About a year later, Kev invited Big Boogie back on his show, and this time he straight up exposed him for lying about that scholarship. They pulled up the old clip, showed it to everyone, and Big Boogie finally had to clear the air and admit that no, the scholarship was not worth $5 million. It was just a regular scholarship like everyone else gets. The whole situation became a meme in the hip-hop community, with people joking about getting $5 million drumming scholarships and colleges handing out more money than the NBA. But Big Boogie isn't the only rapper who got exposed for lying about how much money they're making. Let's talk about Soulja Boy, because he's had multiple moments where interviewers called him out on his exaggerations. Back in 2019, Soulja was on The Breakfast Club, and if you remember that era, he was going viral for claiming to be the originator of everything in hip-hop. He was on his big comeback tour, doing interviews everywhere, and just making wild claims left and right. During this Breakfast Club appearance, he's bragging about all kinds of deals and accomplishments, and Charlemagne decides to bring up something specific. Back in 2016, Soulja had posted on Instagram that he signed a $400 million deal with the World Poker Fund. If that was true, that would have been one of the biggest deals in hip-hop history, bigger than what Jay-Z got from Live Nation, bigger than what Dr. Dre got from Apple, so Charlemagne asks him about it. And Soulja stands on it, trying to explain that it was an $80 million a year contract for 5 years, hence $400 million total. But Charlemagne had done his research. He let Soulja know that the company itself had come out and said that the deal was actually just shares valued at $2.5 million. Not even $2.5 million cash, but shares that were worth that amount at the time. That's a massive difference from $400 million. Soulja tried to play it off at first, saying millions is millions, baby. Like 2.5 million and 400 million are somehow the same thing. Charlemagne wasn't letting him slide though, he kept pressing him, pointing out that if the IRS came knocking, Soulja would definitely care about the difference between claiming 400 million and actually having 2.5 million. Eventually, Soulja had to admit that yeah, the deal was real, but it wasn't the initial number he had claimed. It was still a deal, just not the astronomical amount he had led everyone to believe. The whole exchange showed how some rappers will exaggerate their business deals to seem more successful than they really are, and what happens when an interviewer actually checks the facts. Now we've covered lies about money and scholarships, but some rappers got exposed for things way more serious, things that could actually affect their safety and reputation in the streets. Let's talk about Vado, because his situation on the Trapland podcast got violent real quick. Vado was on the show and the host Coco was someone he used to be cool with. They used to kick it heavy, but they had a recent falling out, and Coco decided to use this interview as an opportunity to go at Vado. Halfway through the interview, Coco starts going off, calling Vado a clout-chasing rapper, saying he's not really about that street life he portrays in his music. For someone who's built their whole image on being a real street dude, that's basically the worst thing you can say about them. Vado tried to clap back, defending his reputation, saying he is from the streets, and he is about that life. But Coco kept pushing, saying that somebody needed to shut Vado up for all the trash he talks online and in interviews. That's when Vado decided he would be the one to shut Coco up, and he threw a straight uppercut right there during the interview. The whole thing was caught on camera. You can see the moment when Vado decides he's had enough of the disrespect. Coco had exposed him, or tried to expose him, for not being a real street cat, and Vado's response was to prove with his fist that he was willing to get physical. The interview obviously ended at that point, and the clip went viral. People were debating whether Vado was right for throwing the punch or whether he just proved Coco's point by losing his cool on camera. But one thing was clear. Talking about someone's street credibility in hip-hop is a dangerous game, and Coco found that out the hard way. Vado wasn't the only one who had his street credentials questioned during an interview. Namir, who came up in the Alabama rap scene before moving to California, had an awkward moment on No Jumper that exposed some inconsistencies in his story. When Namir first came into the game, he made it very clear that he was a gangster disciple, repping that set hard. But after he moved to California, people started noticing that his whole demeanor changed. He started acting like a Cali dude. And at some point, he started claiming to be a Crip instead of a GD. Now, for people who don't know about gang culture, switching from one gang to another, especially gangs from completely different cities and cultures, is extremely unusual and generally not accepted. During his No Jumper interview, Adam brought this up, asking Namir how exactly he went from being a gangster disciple to being a Crip. Namir got uncomfortable immediately. He tried to laugh it off at first, but Adam kept pressing for an actual explanation. How does someone just switch gang affiliations like that? What was the process? Was he officially put off the GDs and put on with the Crips? Namir couldn't give a straight answer. He kept deflecting, saying he didn't want to talk about it too deeply, that it's just real life, that all his GD homies were already out in Cali, so it just happened naturally. But none of that really explains how you go from one gang to another. The other people on the show tried to get more details out of him, but Namir shut it down every time, saying he's not going to discuss it on camera. By refusing to explain it, he basically exposed himself as someone who's playing around with gang culture rather than actually being deeply embedded in it. Real gang members don't just switch sets because they move to a different city. The comments on that interview absolutely roasted Namir, with people saying he didn't switch gangs, he just changed his GTA crew from Grove Street to Ballas. It became a whole thing where people questioned whether he was ever really a gang member at all, or if he was just using gang affiliation as an aesthetic for his rap career. Now let's talk about someone whose secrets are finally being exposed to the world on a massive scale, and that's Diddy. A lot of what's coming out about Diddy now is shocking to people. But if you go back and watch old interviews, there were signs all along that people just didn't take seriously at the time. Back in 2018, Diddy was on The Breakfast Club, and Charlemagne brought up something that should have raised more eyebrows than it did. Apparently, there was a compilation video going around online of Diddy saying some very questionable, very freaky things during various interviews. Diddy tried to play dumb when Charlemagne mentioned it, acting like he had no idea what video he was talking about. But Charlemagne wasn't letting it go. He actually pulled up the video right there during the interview and played some clips. In these clips, you can hear Diddy saying things like, "I love it all," making comments about liking when someone does things a certain way, calling people daddy, just really suspect behavior. When Charlemagne played these clips, Diddy got visibly uncomfortable. You could see him getting nervous. He tried to explain it away, saying he was coming off a night of partying in Miami and didn't remember what he was saying, that it was just reckless talk. He claimed he wasn't homophobic, so he didn't care what people thought, but you could tell he definitely cared because he was scrambling to explain himself. Charlemagne didn't stop there though. He brought up another situation where Diddy had asked rapper Fabulous why he didn't want to party with him, and a similar conversation that happened with 50 Cent. In fact, 50 Cent had been on The Breakfast Club a week earlier and confirmed that yes, Diddy once asked to take him shopping, which 50 found extremely weird. When Charlemagne confronted Diddy about this, Diddy tried to play it off, saying he was just being a nice guy, that he thought 50 needed some new clothes and wanted to help him out. But the way he said it, the nervousness in his voice, the inability to give a straight answer, it all pointed to something being off. Looking back at this interview now with everything that's come out about Diddy, it hits different. People are going back and watching these old clips and realizing that the signs were there all along. Interviewers were asking the right questions, but nobody really took it seriously until the evidence became overwhelming. Speaking of not taking things seriously, let's talk about Gunna and his Crime Stoppers situation. In 2020, during the pandemic, Gunna did a Zoom interview with The Breakfast Club, and Charlemagne brought up something very specific. There was a video circulating online of Gunna appearing on a Crime Stoppers episode. And for anyone who doesn't know, Crime Stoppers is a show where they ask the public for help solving crimes, and you can call in tips anonymously. Being associated with Crime Stoppers in the hip-hop community is basically the same as being labeled a snitch. It's one of the worst things that can be said about you. So when Charlemagne brought this up, asking Gunna to explain what that video was about, Gunna's response was to play completely dumb. He said he didn't know what Charlemagne was talking about, that he was never on Crime Stoppers and never stopped any crime. Charlemagne pressed him, asking if that was even him in the video, and Gunna admitted yes, that's him in the video, but he claimed he doesn't know what Crime Stoppers is about, that he was never involved in any case. The whole exchange was awkward because the video exists, people can watch it, and it clearly says Crime Stoppers at the beginning. Gunna saying he doesn't know what it's about when he's literally in the video just made him look worse. He tried to deflect by talking about how if you're really from the streets, there would be paperwork documenting if you snitched, but he never addressed why he was on Crime Stoppers in the first place if he had nothing to do with stopping any crime. Gunna's not the only rapper who got exposed for potential snitching during an interview. FBG Butter from Chicago had an even wilder situation that almost got violent. Butter went on his friend FYB J-Mane's show called Simony, and at first everything seemed cool. They're close, so J-Mane is asking him regular questions that anyone could answer smoothly. But then J-Mane brings up the topic of snitching and mentions King Von and Lil J, and you can immediately see Butter's demeanor change. At first J-Mane pulls out a mousetrap as a joke, to troll Butter about the rat allegations. Butter tells him to chill out, saying that's goofy and he's not trying to be floated out on camera, especially by someone he considers a friend. But J-Mane doesn't stop there. He keeps bringing up Lil J, who used to be cool with Butter, but they had a falling out. Butter's getting more and more frustrated, saying it's like arguing with a boyfriend at this point, trying to get J-Mane to drop the topic. Then J-Mane takes it to another level. He literally pulls out a block of cheese and sets it on the table in front of Butter. Now, calling someone a rat or a snitch is one thing, but physically bringing out cheese, which is a symbol for rats eating cheese, that's a whole different level of disrespect. When Butter sees that cheese, he immediately reaches down and pulls out his Glock, cocking it right there on camera to make J-Mane stop with the trolling. You can hear the gun cock, and J-Mane realizes he's pushed things too far. He starts backing down, trying to de-escalate, saying it's just a joke and they're boys. But Butter makes it clear that he's ready to slide if J-Mane keeps disrespecting him like that. The interview continued after that tense moment, but you could tell Butter was on edge the whole time. It's a crazy example of what happens when someone touches on topics that truly bother a rapper, especially topics related to their street reputation and whether they cooperated with police. Let's shift gears and talk about Lil House Phone and Adam 22, because their situation shows how friendships can get destroyed when business and personal life collide during an interview. House Phone was a regular on No Jumper. He was Adam's friend and he was featured on the platform frequently. At one point, Adam interviewed a trans woman named Gracie Jane, and during that interview, Gracie claimed that they had hooked up with House Phone. This was obviously a sensitive topic for House Phone, especially given how hip-hop culture can be about these things. House Phone expected Adam as his friend to edit that part out of the interview before uploading it. That's what friends do, right? They protect each other from potentially embarrassing or damaging information getting out. But Adam was focused on getting the video out quickly, and he uploaded the raw interview without editing that part out. He didn't give House Phone a warning, didn't ask him about it, just put it out there for the world to see. When House Phone found out, he was furious. He felt betrayed by someone he considered a close friend. During a later podcast appearance together, House Phone confronted Adam about it, saying Adam sold him down the river for 40 or 50,000 views, that Adam permanently altered his life by exposing that information. Adam tried to defend himself, saying he didn't do it on purpose, that he was just trying to get content out fast and didn't think about the implications. But House Phone wasn't trying to hear any excuses. He felt like Adam heard the information in that interview, knew it would be damaging to House Phone, and chose to release it anyway without even giving him a heads up. House Phone mentioned how he had to hear about this from his sister, how his family was worried about him, how it affected his relationships with other people in his life. The confrontation got even more heated when House Phone brought up that Adam had also disrespected his mother in another interview. That's when Adam made a move that really set House Phone off. Adam said that he couldn't have that much disrespect for House Phone's mom because Adam had paid for her funeral. Bringing up the fact that he paid for the funeral, like that gave him permission to expose House Phone or disrespect his family. That was the final straw. House Phone threw his drink at Adam and physically attacked him right there on camera. Security had to pull them apart, and their friendship was essentially over after that. It's a sad situation because you can see both sides. Adam was running a business and trying to create content, but he also betrayed his friend's trust by not protecting him from potentially damaging information. House Phone had every right to be angry, but the violence probably wasn't the answer. The whole thing shows how complicated it gets when you mix friendship with content creation, and when interviewers have to decide between protecting their friends and getting views. Soulja Boy makes another appearance on this list because he got exposed again, this time by academics, During an Everyday Struggle interview, Soulja was going off about various topics, and he made a comment about not even knowing who Kanye West was when he was younger. Now, Soulja was trying to downplay Kanye's influence or something, acting like Kanye wasn't on his radar when he was coming up. But almost immediately a picture surfaced online of a young Soulja Boy with Kanye West, clearly showing him some love and respect. The photo completely contradicted what Soulja had just said, and people called him out for lying about something so easily disproven. Later in that same interview, academics brought up the situation between Soulja and Drake. Soulja had been complaining that Drake took a lyric from one of his songs and used it without giving him credit. Soulja was going on about how he taught Drake everything, how Drake stole his flow, but academics did his homework and exposed Soulja for doing the exact same thing. The lyric that Soulja claimed Drake stole from him was actually a lyric that Soulja himself took from Shawty Lo. Shawty Lo had used that exact cadence and similar wording in his song They Know back in 2007, and then Soulja used it in his song in 2008, and then Drake used it later. So Soulja was complaining about Drake stealing from him, when Soulja had stolen from Shawty Lo in the first place. When academics pointed this out, Soulja got defensive and angry. He tried to claim it was a completely different line, a different cadence, but academics pulled up the receipts showing it was basically the same thing. Soulja then pivoted to saying that Drake personally told him he got the flow from Soulja, so that proved Drake took it from him and not from Shawty Lo. But academics asked the obvious question: if he took the line from Shawty Lo, why didn't you give him credit? Soulja didn't have a good answer for that. He just kept insisting that it was his line, that everyone knows Drake stole his flow, that academics was being fat and trying to create drama. The whole exchange made Soulja look hypocritical because he was demanding credit for something he himself had borrowed from someone else without giving credit. It's another example of how interviewers who do their research can expose contradictions and hypocrisy in real time. Finally, let's talk about Lil Dump, because his interview on No Jumper exposed something much more serious than lies or contradictions. Dump came on the show to talk about his music and let people get to know him better, since he was starting to take rap seriously. But during the interview, something was clearly wrong with him. He kept getting up and leaving to throw up, coming back looking sick, and Adam kept asking what was going on. At first, Dump tried to play it off, saying something deep in life was causing him stress and that's why he was throwing up. He said he'd rather not talk about it on camera but would tell Adam personally. Adam wasn't buying it though, because it was pretty obvious that Dump wasn't sober. He asked Dump directly if he was drunk, and Dump said no. Adam then asked if Dump was trying to get clean from something, trying to quit drugs or pills. That's when Dump admitted he was trying to get clean, specifically from perks. But then he contradicted himself, saying he wasn't on anything at that moment. Adam pointed out that the reason Dump was throwing up was probably because he was going through withdrawal, which happens when someone who's addicted to opiates tries to quit. Your body gets physically sick, you throw up, you get the shakes. It's a really difficult process. Dump didn't want to admit all of this on camera, but Adam had basically exposed what was really going on. The interview tried to continue, but Dump ended up throwing up again, and eventually Adam had to end the whole thing because Dump was in such bad shape and the smell was getting unbearable. It was a sad situation because here's this young rapper trying to promote his music and his career, but he's clearly struggling with a serious addiction problem, and it all got exposed during what was supposed to be a regular interview. All of these stories show different aspects of what can happen when interviewers don't hold back and actually press rappers on uncomfortable topics. Sometimes it's about exposing lies, whether it's fake scholarships or inflated business deals. Sometimes it's about bringing up controversial topics that the rappers would rather keep hidden, like past kisses or current addictions. Sometimes it's about questioning street credibility and gang affiliations that don't add up. And sometimes it's about pointing out hypocrisy, like complaining about being copied when you copied someone else. The common thread through all of these is that when interviewers do their research, ask direct questions, and don't let rappers deflect or avoid topics, the truth has a way of coming out. Some rappers handle these moments with grace and maturity, explaining themselves calmly and moving on. Others get defensive, aggressive, or even violent. But in every case, these moments become viral because they show us something real beyond the carefully crafted images that rappers usually present. They remind us that behind the music, the money, and the fame, these are real people with real secrets, real flaws, and real reactions when those things get exposed to the world.